And yeah, when I moved there 2005, I think in 2006 I became part of one of those, which already existed. And they called it a PAIR, which stands for Poor Artists in Residence. And depending on the funding, we did it without funding for a long time. And then we had some good times, I think, where we had quite a lot of funding. It's nothing compared to this, but enough funding to get things going. And we had monthly events where we presented 5 people on an evening, maybe 4 or 5. And well, during my time we had twice a festival, which I'd like to call an event as well, which was over 2 or 3 days, and we presented like between 20 and 30 people, so it was really a lot. But since about a year or 2 ago, I think that kind of bled to death. We did that with a group of 4, and we were the volunteers, there was just the 4 of us. And 2 moved out, and the founder, I would say, is kind of burnt out at the moment. So from time to time, I kind of poke him that can we not, but then he points at me, and I'm not going to do it alone anymore. So yeah, that's practically where I come from. Far away countryside.
Yeah, and I think that's a common thing, this evolution of groups and how they change, even in terms of the 7A11D festival. The first festival we did, it was 14 artists who organized it. Then the second festival, this was before we realized we couldn't do it every year, it was 7 artists. And that was a huge drop. And we actually did a kind of 2 festivals. We did one in the summer and one in the fall. It was a 2-part festival. So then we said, okay, we can't do this anymore. And the collective evolved over time, and different members have come in and gone. But that drop from 14 to 7 was quite dramatic. So I can see a drop from 4 to 2 would probably be
disastrous, obviously.
But I'm wondering, just in terms of how connected, as an artist who's not originally from Finland, being in Finland, do you feel you're an outsider? Do you feel you're really part of that community, or how does that work?
Nah, I feel part of that community. I think it's really easy to be an outsider in Finland in general, like no matter where you're from. But yeah, of course you connect with the people, and I think as there's for such a small country, I mean there live 5 million people in Finland. I think the population of Toronto is bigger than but there are Joachim, there are maybe 8 associations / organizations, quite a lot anyway. So there's a lot of people that come around and go around, and you meet them from time to time, and we have informal talks, and see what people do. So in that sense, it's not really difficult, but you often have to travel for that. And I live in Lahti, which is a city which is a 1-hour drive from Helsinki, so I'm rather centrally based, so to speak, but the people that are up north in the country, it will take them 6 or 7 hours to come, to see what's going on. And for a weekend event, they will not do that, obviously. So in a way, you're isolated, but if it's always your own decision now, so you can be part of it if you want.
Great. Now I'll move on to Brian. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the context that you work in. And,
okay.
Where you
live. I live in Northern Ireland, part of Ireland, and as a geographical structure. I grew up in Northern Ireland, and pretty much during the Troubles, most of my memories are of things happening in your local area, and that really is, I think, informed so much of my thinking and experience. And seeing so much opposition and contradiction and I suppose just negative views of the other has really informed so much of my thinking in trying to find some way between these things, or looking for a way of being that in no way kind of would add to this kind of negative kind of opposition. So that was a background really to the formation of my thinking or my experience. I grew up in the country, part of a Protestant community, and went to Belfast Art College and met quite a range of others like minds, and from both communities, And that helped to kind of affirm a lot of my thinking and enabled me to kind of keep going as a practitioner. And since leaving college in the 80s, I kept living in Belfast for a good number of years through pretty bleak times in the city and in the Troubles, and working mainly as a sculptor and installation artist at that period, and developing from that eventually into testing performance art, I think in the early 90s. And it seemed at the time a very big step, but a very short step as well from what I'd been actually doing. Having done that, then I started to work with artists like Alistair MacLennan. There was Nick Stewart and Brian Kennedy, other Northern Irish artists at the time, and we started to organise little projects, or not so little, but one-off projects, maybe one every 2 years. We had to just, like everyone else, apply for funding, and bringing internationals artists into the context and presenting work in different cities, Derry and Belfast, and testing contexts, bringing artists into different communities or different locations, and presenting live work, performance, installation, whatever. And during the 90s, I lived in Dublin for a few years, working there, and then came back to Belfast to live, and then got a teaching post in the city of Belfast, part-time teaching there still, and then got married, had kids, got married, and moved to the country, where I still live today, back in the north of Ireland. And I organise still events with an organisation called Be Beyond, who have become quite active in the last 5 years in Belfast and Northern Ireland. Really down to people like Brian Patterson, who's the backbone of that organisation, and without who I don't think it would be there.
How many artists are involved in BBM?
There's a committee at the minute, I think about 8. And it's an international committee by chance as much as anything else. We have on the committee we have Alistair MacLennan, myself, Brian Patterson, Vera Santa Maria, Sinead Brennick Cashel, Rainer Pagel, and Kasia Pagel, Hugh O'Donnell, Colm Clark, and forgive me anyone who I've forgotten. But all who have come through performance, and we're trying as an organisation to keep the younger artists involved and bringing more younger artists in, because I feel like I'm old now and should be standing back a little and letting others do the things they want rather than trying to set up projects that I want to do. So I'm standing back at this point a little bit to see what happens and to see if anyone else can step in and do other things, both for family reasons as well, as well as age reasons.
But I think part of I know it's particularly true of Be Beyond, and it sounds like it's true also of Maurice's efforts, that the idea of it being international and really having a lot of artists from different places exchanging with local artists seems to be an important aspect of what we do.
Be Beyond, we set out to kind of bring work in. It was, we didn't want just to be kind of presenting work to ourselves. We wanted to bring work from as many places in the world as we can afford or to do, with the idea then of perhaps giving opportunities to younger artists to go to other places. Also trying to get the sense of younger artists getting experience with their work and experience in other places, but that they would then get experience of organising and helping something to develop. Mm-hmm. In Ireland in general, there's it's almost like a peripatetic or a staggered history of performance activity. There's projects have happened in Cork in the past and in Limerick, and now that's changed and it's moved to Galway, and there's artists now in Dublin working and setting up projects. So it's never really developed like in Canada, a strong network, because I think it's just been too small so far. And it's perhaps a little bit like Finland in the sense that there's people coming and going, and it's quite hard to establish a very strong network in that. But at the minute, I think it's stronger than it has been for about 15 years. There's a lot more happening now.
And Robin, I wonder if that sense of connecting with other communities has been important with you as well. I know groups like Tribe and City Walk have tried to connect with Indigenous communities in other places, that sort of thing as well. Is that important to you in terms of developing your community? Or?
Well, I mean,